You're locked in, and I'm Algenon Cash. Welcome back. Election 2020 continues to roll along here. We continue to get more announcements about outcoming election or election results in certain areas and states and districts. Up in New York in District 11, the Republican challenger was able to win yet another seat. So that's now 10 seats that the Republicans have picked up in the House. And overnight, we also got another announcement out of Arizona. NBC has called Arizona for Joe Biden, and so first time that a Democrat has won a seat out or won that state since I believe 1996, back when Clinton carried that state. So we are slowly but surely getting to the end. I know here in North Carolina they are still waiting to make some final announcements. Interestingly enough, in the Supreme Court court justice race, does look like that Justice Beasley has overtook Justice Newby. And so she's up now by 400 votes here in North Carolina as they continue to try to sort things out, although there have been some races that have conceded, like Cal Cunningham to Senator Tillis. And still President Trump is waiting to figure out if he carried the state of North Carolina. So slowly but surely, the longest election in history, I guess, we'll figure out who our elected leaders are going to be. But I wanted to have a discussion today. So many of you all have sent me questions and comments and wondering about how is it that the media is able to call and project these races. As we know, there have not been any official certifications or official results from the secretaries of state around the country, but obviously everything we're working on right now in terms of Vice President Biden being recognized as President-elect Biden, and then also Vice President-elect Harris, is all based off projections. So I thought I would invite Briana Conner from WXII. She's a news anchor with WXII locally. You certainly remember her. She was on over the summer. And I wanted to get her back to just sort of share some comments around how does the media project and call these races, which I know for so many of you out there is sort of a frustrating experience. Brianna, how are you today?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. Glad to have you back on. I'm sure you've been working very hard with this election cycle and all of the chaos that ensued from last week and everything that we've been trying to still navigate through this week in terms of getting some final answers. But I know from my audience, and I get so many messages and questions about it because they are oftentimes confused, because on one hand, you'll have a candidate, like President Trump and several others. I mean, there's several candidates right now across the country that are somewhat contesting their races and refusing to concede, sort of taking a page out of the president's book. But you hear these candidates declare that the race is not over, the results have not been certified, but then you turn on your small and large screens and constantly see the media obviously saying that a certain candidate has won. Sort of walk us through that. How does the media call or project these winners?
So first off, I really appreciate how accurate you've been with your language, because that's important. What the media does, what news organizations and decision desks in particular do, is project. And a projection is based on math. And all that is looking at the number of votes that are coming in, the number of votes that are still left that haven't been counted, taking a look at percentages, what we know about that county, what we know about voting trends in that county, and putting a bunch of equations together. A lot of people who are, again, good at math, a lot smarter than me, and we use that information to project. And so what you'll see at a local news level, WXII, Fox 8, GHP, is we use projections from the AP, from CNN, and then from our affiliate. And what we try to do at WXII is let you know, we source who we're saying. So election night, we said the AP is projecting President Trump or Vice President Biden has won such and such state. And so that's how we do it on election night. this is carried on, like you said, to, now a week and a half past the election, and these decision desks are still working on crunching the numbers and making their projections. And when they do, as we saw last night, that's when we were able to announce that NBC News and CNN had projected Vice President Biden would take Arizona. So that's how it works, from a national news to a local news level.
Yeah, and sometimes I think the frustration from not only my audience but the community at large can sometimes be when these projections are incorrect. I know here in this latest cycle, there were a couple of outlets that thought they were able to call races that they had to actually come back and retract. I know Fox News took a lot of heat, especially from conservatives, for calling the Arizona race so early, and then you had other outlets like NBC that obviously delayed calling the race until last night. I mean, these projections, and of course you can go back to even the year 2000, where we had actual newspaper headlines printed the next day that Gore was the president, only for a lot of these media companies having to rescind that declaration 37 days later, when we realized that President Bush had actually won Florida. So with all these projections and some of the math crunching that you're describing, can it confuse voters on what's really going on in the middle of an election?
Perhaps a voter who's only paying attention here and there. I'm glad you brought up 2000. That was certainly a situation where, live on television and at these decision desks, people called Florida one way and then had to say, whoa, 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 let's put it back here. Now Florida's, again, too close to call. And so there are a lot of lessons that I believe decision desks learned from what happened in Florida. And I believe that's why you saw NBC, CNN, a lot of these other national news organizations take a little bit longer to call really tight races like Arizona, like we saw happen this time. So I think what you're seeing is national news networks, decision desks, learning and getting a little bit better each time you go. If a viewer is paying attention, what they'll hear is these organizations saying, we project that such and such candidate will take this race. Again, nothing is final. The president is correct and his supporters are correct when they say nothing is final until these races get certified. But what these decision desks are doing is saying, we have confidence that the remaining votes that are out there will not change who is going to win this race. So you never see, or you will never hear someone say, in the news say, so-and-so has won anything. It's that they're projected to win until it's been certified. And so if you're paying attention and if you're listening to the words that we're using, it should be really clear that these are projections. They are yet to be certified. But again, these people who are crunching the numbers and paying really close attention don't believe that any votes remaining would be enough to change. But the thing that I really want your viewers to understand, especially after this year, is how important every vote is. I think that's what was made really clear. You take a look at some of these states, again, Arizona, too close to call until a week and a half after the race. That tells you that every vote matters, truly. When you have some of these races, you mentioned Beasley and Newby, separated by less than 500 votes. How important is it to get out and participate in the process? I mean, wow.
Earlier this week, I had a conversation, and I would encourage my audience to go take a look at it. I invited BJ Murphy on, who's the CEO of Magic Mile Media, publisher of News and the North Carolina News Network. We talked about the role that media plays in elections. We had a really good conversation about social media and really how social media continues to change the landscape of how we view elections. And so that discussion happened earlier this week. The video and the interview and the conversation is available on the page. Go take a look at it. But one of my last questions for you, Brianna, is that with social media being an interesting variable nowadays, does that also add to some confusion? And what I mean by that, you say voters should be paying attention. maybe you really are paying attention, but within the middle of the fog of war, as I call it, sometimes it can be really confusing. I know even on election night, you messaged me and actually thought that they had announced Georgia for Biden, only to find out that that was a fake news source. Talk about how social media adds to the level of confusion on election night.
Absolutely. I think, again, the lessons that we're learning, it's so important to make sure that the sources of information are trustworthy, credible, verified, all of that, because let's be honest, there are trolls out there, there are fake accounts out there, and there are people who want to disinform you. And there are people who want to confuse you, unfortunately. So a good rule of thumb, something to remember, is that if you see something online, look for more than one source. So the first time you see some information, say to yourself, okay, let me go see if I can find anybody else reporting this. If you can find 2 or 3 sources all saying the same thing, good, credible sources, then there's a very good chance that that is accurate and that it's factual. So it's something that we need to continue to remind ourselves, even as we move forward and get closer to these races being certified. It's always a really good rule of thumb to make sure that whatever you see is being repeated and reported by multiple sources.
Yeah, that's really interesting because obviously with you being a somewhat of a veteran in the news business, especially compared to my audience, even if a tweet or an announcement like that would misdirect you, I mean, being someone who knows what to look for, it certainly would cause any one of my audience to also be thrown off as well. So yes, I think you got to be vigilant at everything you're looking at and making sure it's coming from a credible news source. Brianna, always glad to have you here. For my audience, Brianna is a news anchor with WXII here locally in our backyard. You can catch her Monday through Friday on Channel 12. And Brianna, you're working on something new. You've got a podcast in the pipeline. Tell us real quickly what that's all about.
Yeah, very beginning stages of it. We're looking to do something pretty neat here on the Triad. When it comes to news and our community. So I'm putting my ideas together, still probably in the brainstorming process of it, but keep your ears perked up to hear some more about that hopefully soon. We're looking to launch pretty soon here.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And that podcast is actually going to be distributed by my friends over at the Winston-Salem Chronicle, who I co-host the Chronicle Live every Monday and Wednesday night at 8:00 with Derwin Montgomery. And so it'll be really interesting to add additional digital content to what we're doing over at the Chronicle. So looking forward to that. Again, Brianna, thank you for being here with me. And to my audience, make sure you guys check out Briana Conner every night on Channel 12, Monday through Friday. She's reporting on some of the local news that matters most to you. Brianna, take care. Enjoy your day, okay?
Thank you so much, Algenon. Great to come on with you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. All right. So we are still in the middle of election 2020, but we're also still dealing with a global pandemic. COVID-19 and the economic crisis associated with it is still something that we are still dealing with. And although many communities have allowed businesses to reopen, there are still restrictions that are preventing businesses from being able to operate at full capacity. And right now, for at least the past 9 days in our country, we've seen over 100,000 new virus cases every single day. So if you look around at many communities throughout the country, New York, New Jersey, Chicago, so many others, it is increasingly looking like we might be going back into some type of further restrictions for small businesses like restaurants, bars, and gyms as government sort of hopes to curb the spread of this virus. I've got Michael Sharpton with me. He's a Charlotte business owner. He has a bar down in Charlotte, and someone that I know very well from online. He's always commenting and sometimes supporting some of the things that I post, and sometimes criticizing, which I like a little bit of both. I always learn from that. Michael, how you doing today? Thank you for joining us.
Algenon, thank you for having me, sir. I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well as well.
I am. I'd be doing a lot better if we could get fully past COVID-19 and get back to some normalcy. It feels like every time we're getting to some normalcy, we see a disruption or we head back in the wrong direction. You've got a bar down in Charlotte. Are you guys back open yet? I know the governor is allowing outdoor service in phase 3 right now. Have y'all taken advantage of that, or?
Yes, sir, we did. We didn't for the first couple of weeks because it just didn't make sense, and quite frankly, it still doesn't make sense. Just a little bit of history. I have one of the oldest and largest bars in the state of North Carolina. At the start of phase 3, the governor did allow private bars to reopen without outdoor service only at 30% capacity. And for my outdoor area, that's about 30 people. And just financially, that's not going to cut it.
And so, but you guys are open right now, just doing outdoor service. And how are you making those numbers work? I mean, is it helping just to get a little bit of revenue in, or how do you justify doing it?
Yeah, two things. One, yes, a little bit of revenue is better than none. But also, it was about some of the employees that I was able to bring back. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to bring back all of my employees, but I was able to bring back about 25% of them. So as much as this was for the bar to be able to make a little bit of revenue, it was about allowing my people to start earning an income again.
And, help us understand, because I know there's a lot of confusion around how the unemployment works. So if your employee was receiving unemployment but decided to come on back to the bar, from my understanding, they lose the unemployment at that point. Are they making enough working in the bar to offset what they were making from unemployment, or are they taking a loss by even coming back to work?
Most of them are probably taking a loss to come back to work. North Carolina is at the very bottom of their unemployment benefits as far as all the states are concerned. So none of them were making a whole lot of money to start with. It was literally just enough to probably put a little bit of food on the table. So, but now we're going at 8 months into this. Most of them have exhausted all of their unemployment benefits to start with. So at this point, they had to come back. And that was another consideration for us is at 8 months, all of their benefits has been exhausted. And the last program, the PAU, has been, my understanding, has been put on hold by the state until they get either funding and or instructions from the federal government how to proceed with the PUA. Yeah,
and there obviously you and I have talked or exchanged comments on Facebook about the dysfunction right now in Washington, D.C. I mean, it was dysfunctional prior to the election. I would argue that maybe the dysfunction has even increased more so with President Trump losing the election, or at least we believe he's lost the election. He's going to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court. But while he's fighting the outcome of November 3rd, we are not seeing any kind of conversation about COVID-19 relief. We're not hearing anything about COVID-19 recovery or anything right now, anything to do with any kind of transition. So how optimistic are you that we'll get another round of stimulus to help out bar owners like you?
I think eventually it will come. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be too late for a majority of the 1,063 private bar owners in the state of North Carolina. Private bars are the last sector in the food and beverage industry to allow to reopen. So, we were already hurting, some of us to the point of no return. And, this continued just literally lack of any urgency by our elected officials, both at the state and federal government, has been devastating.
Have you, do you have any friends in the industry that have just decided to be done permanently? They're not coming back at all?
Yeah, unfortunately, personally, I know of 5 bar owners that just have said, I can't do this anymore. They've gone through whatever business savings they had. Some have gone through all of their personal savings. So, it's owning a private bar is a very, very personal, this for some of us, this is our part of the family, and our customers are part of our family, and it's very personal to us. So, you do everything you can to make sure that it survives. And unfortunately for some of my friends in the business, they just came to the decision that they couldn't continue.
Charlotte has always, I haven't been down to Charlotte this year like normal, but typically that's a place. I live here in the Triad, so I'm only about an hour 15 minutes away, but typically I love coming down there, and you all have some really great restaurants and a lot of good nightlife and bars and clubs and all those kind of things. I would imagine 2020 has been much different in Charlotte than the years prior. What's the mood like in Charlotte right now? What's the community feel like?
I think right now the community is just completely tired of COVID now, and I don't mean that not taking any of the seriousness away from COVID, but they are literally just tired of the constant negativity that of everything that COVID brings, to their life, the disruptions in their lives, even from, work to church, just COVID literally has affected every facet of everyone's life. And it's been, everybody just wants a little bit of sense of normalcy, and particularly as we go into the holiday season now, this is usually a time for family and friends and get-togethers, and unfortunately it's not going to be that way this year.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't feel like we're just a couple of weeks from Thanksgiving right now. I mean, it doesn't quite feel like the holiday season. But if you're just now joining us, you're locked in. I'm Algenon. The other voice you hear with me today is Michael Sharpton, who's a small business owner. He has a bar here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're talking about just COVID-19 and the impact that it's had to small businesses, and specifically to the food and beverage industry, which has probably been most impaired by what's happened this year in 2020. You heard me mention a moment ago, Michael, that for the past 9 days straight, at least nationally, we've seen somewhere around 100,000 cases per day. We've had over 10 million infections of COVID this year. 240,000 deaths nationally, and it seems to be spiking in a lot of cities. I know down in Texas, California, New York, so many places, it just seems to be raging. It increasingly feels like we're going back into some kind of further restrictions in North Carolina. What are you hearing about that? And if that's the case, if the governor was to come out in the next 2 or 3 weeks and shut bars back down, what does that mean for you and your business and livelihood?
So I agree with you. I feel like if the trends continue as they do, and I don't see any reason why they would not continue to trend upward right now. I think we'll probably go back to phase 2. That would be the best scenario that I think would happen. Maybe even phase 1, but I don't think Governor Cooper will take us back that far. For the bar industry, for those bars that were already teetering on the brink of complete destruction and closing, that would just finish them off. Of the 1,063 private bars right now, I would say less than 40% of us will be able to make it through this and come out on the other side.
Wow, that's a significant number. As I get ready to wind down, one thing I'm really interested in hearing from you is what do bar owners need right now? Obviously the General Assembly will return to session in January. The governor is still trying to pull a few levers to get like rental assistance to bar owners. I've heard some more about that this week. Obviously we're patiently waiting on Congress to try to do something to try to help the food and beverage industry. But if you're an elected official, if you had the power to do whatever, what is it that bars actually need to be able to survive this event?
Well, so most of our private bar owners, we've been 7.5 months without any revenue. Right now, we need financial assistance, and that is not a loan. Most of us already have taken on more debt than we've ever had before. And so, what we need is financial assistance. The state of North Carolina has forced us to close, and the state of North Carolina needs to provide financial assistance, and they need to do it with a sense of urgency. Unfortunately, under the current leadership of the General Assembly, there's been, in my opinion, no sense of urgency to get small businesses in North Carolina any kind of significant help. They've had a couple of job programs that they've passed, which has been beneficial for a few, but not necessarily in the food and beverage industry. And the MER program, which will be very helpful once they finally start paying it out. We're now 6 weeks into it, and as far as I know, they've not issued any financial assistance to that program yet.
Have you been able to get any kind of financial assistance? I know federally we have PPP. I know down in Charlotte, the county rolled out a special program. I know the state would argue that they rolled out special programs through Golden Leaf and the Commerce Department. Have you taken advantage of any of the small programs that we've heard about this year? Or
yes, fortunately we were able to take advantage of a couple of those. But being in this business and having one of the largest bars, they're just there's a lot of financial liability that we have each month, and we haven't had any revenue in 8 months. So it's a little bit of money here and there certainly has helped, and I'm very appreciative of what they've done. It's not enough if they expect small businesses to survive. And me and you both know small businesses are the backbone of the North Carolina economy.
That's right.
Those in the banking industry and some of those large corporations might disagree with me, but it is the small businesses, and it's the small mom and pop restaurants and bars that are literally the heart and soul of many communities within the state of North Carolina. And it's imperative that these continue to operate. We employ tens of thousands of people, and it would be devastating for us to continue to lose these jobs and these businesses.
No, I think you're right. Somewhere around 2/3 of our economy is driven by small business and, the output from small business. So they are a significant component of every community, not just Charlotte, but every city and town, across the country. And so we can only pray that some kind of way we get our act together and, mobilize some capital to try to support those that are most in need. Michael, I really appreciate you locking in with me today, and even more so, appreciate the support and the comments that you provide on the post. Even, people find this hard to believe about me at times, but even when we don't agree, I learn more from those posts than I do from the ones when we do agree. So I always appreciate that. Real quickly, if my audience wanted to follow up with you and ask questions or learn more, how would they be able to get in touch with you?
Sure, they can get in touch with me by my email. It's michael@thescorpio.com.
Awesome. And I encourage you all to do so. I like I said, it's interesting how Facebook works, but have sort of connected with Michael through Facebook, and he's a part of the North Carolina Bar and Tavern Association as well, which is an advocacy group that formed this year, a statewide advocacy group that came together to try to advocate on behalf of the private bars and nightclubs across the state that have been under such pressure. So if you're listening to this today and you're wondering what can you do to help people like Michael and even people like me, I mean, I'm still partners in several different restaurant concepts that one or two may be doing okay, but several are not doing okay right now. But if you want to help, if you want to support us in any kind of way, probably the best thing you could do is call or email Senator Richard Burr or Senator Tom Tillis and tell them to get off their rear ends and get to work and start acting. Because as I did an interview last night for WXII where I really declared this is an extinction level event if we don't do something for our restaurants and bars here soon. And I'll also share Michael's same thoughts that we need the North Carolina General Assembly to act. I mean, they've been on recess here for the last several weeks. I think they went on recess back in September. They're not scheduled to return to January. And so in the midst of all this, we really had no activity, whatsoever. So call on your state elected official, call on your federal elected official, call anybody you know, and tell them it is imperative that they start to act and get more serious about what's going on with small businesses and specifically what's happening within the food and beverage industry. Again, I'll be back with you. Don't forget on Monday, I've got a small business roundtable at noon. We'll have some conservative and liberal small business owners react to what's going on with the election. So that should be a really cool conversation. Mark your calendar for that. That's going to be on Monday at noon. And as always, until then, y'all stay locked in.
Thank you.
Hey, man, thank you for that. That was pretty good.
Oh, thank you.